Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk, branding your e-commerce website. My name is Evan, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this virtual event through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. Today's virtual event is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation, and by participating in the session using Microsoft Teams, your name, email address, phone number, and/or title may be viewable by other session participants. If you do not consent to be part of a recorded session, please disconnect at this time. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions throughout the event. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Now let's get started. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Nick Holman, Senior Program Manager, and Sam Jarawan, Principal Program Manager. Nick, over to you.
Thank you, Evan. Yeah, so this Tech Talk is going to do a deep dive on the several methods that you can use to brand your e-commerce website. So to take a look at what we're going to try to do in this session, first we're going to start off in the Site Builder tool set within Dynamics 365 Commerce and show you a couple ways that you can quickly style your site and do some branding there. The first one's going to be using what we call style variables and presets, which does not require writing any CSS yourself. The second way is using CSS overrides, where we'll actually upload a CSS file within Site Builder and use that to do quick overrides for prototyping or just quick hot fixes on your styles. After that, I'm going to turn it over to Sam, and he's going to walk through several more methods that you can do to create a custom theme using our extensibility SDK, which will give you a lot more power to do really anything you want to style and brand your website. He's also going to show you where those authorizable style variables can be created and either removed or added to enable your authors to have control over style stuff within Site Builder. He's also going to show you how to create style presets, which is going to basically allow a theme developer to have some starting points like a dark preset, a light preset, a classic preset, or a modern preset, something like that. And that can all become packaged with the theme when you deploy it and give you some starting points for either if you're an ISV, then building a theme that may be reusable across many brands, or if you're in a specific brand, giving them a few options to start from. And then he's also going to wrap up with how to actually extend a module's HTML through theme extension. So this will actually show you how to go beyond just CSS and actually change the HTML structure behind our modules and extend them in a way that keeps those modules serviceable even pushes updates to those modules in the future. So without further ado, let's jump over to the Site Builder toolset and kind of just look at some quick ways that we can start styling a site. This is the Site Builder toolset, and if you watched my previous tech talk on managing e-commerce site content, you should be somewhat familiar with that. If you haven't watched that, I would recommend watching it. And what we're going to do today is, in some of the other demos, we've been showing the Fabrikam branded website. You'll see this in a lot of the commerce marketing materials. It's a website for a fashion retailer. And what we're going to do today is we're going to actually sort of use this as a starting point, but copy it and start making a completely different site for what's going to be an action sports company called AdventureWorks. And you'll notice between these two, they're not very different, right? It's really the same styles and branding. Now, obviously, the categories are different, and the logo is different, and some of the content has changed, but the branding and the CSS looks almost identical. So let's kind of start to explore how we can break away from this Fabrikam style look and start customizing this for that AdventureWorks brand. So in Site Builder, we're going to go here to this Design tab. We click that, and you'll see here we just have a couple of built-in presets, is what they're called, here in this part of the tool. These are packaged with that Fabrikam theme that was uploaded into this site. And I want to point out up here that I'm actually managing these sites within the same tenant here. So there's the Fabrikam site, and we've just copied this site into an AdventureWorks site, and that's what we're building here. So in this design tab, we have these two that are packaged with that. And if we click the view, we start to see what CSS comes default in that preset. This is the stuff that's packaged, and you'll see this badge up here that says built in. That means it was built by a developer and packaged with the theme. But what I can do as a content author is I can actually create my own here. So if I hit the edit button, it's going to give me a prompt to name my own. So I'm going to call this Demo AdventureWorks and give that a name and a description, and I can actually just save this off. This is actually saving it to the content management system, and I can now do whatever I want to this preset. So how am I going to see this preset? Hit this preview button up here at the top, and this is going to give me an option to check this style preset against any page in my whole website. So I'm going to choose the home page here, and I can even choose which localized variant this is. So this could be for a particular channel and a localized variant within that channel. And this will load up a full browser window that I can use to preview all these style changes. And once this loads, I'm going to actually break this off, and this is the way I like to work, is that I will actually move this tab to a new window and then just put it on one side of the screen, and I'll put this one on the left side over here so we can see what we're doing. So you'll notice the branding, the buttons are green, it has the Fabrikam style. So let's start here. The main brand accent here is green, but for my brand at AdventureWorks, I'm going to make it a really nice nice red color. So we'll apply that, and I can just hit save, and if once I hit save, I just refresh this over here, and I can start to see the changes that I'm making to my style. So I've just changed the buttons there. You'll see the hover state though is still green. So let's fix that. So brand accent, alt on hover state. We'll pick maybe a different shade of red, maybe a darker shade. Apply that, save that, and you'll see I haven't refreshed over here. It's still green, but as soon as I just refresh this, then our hover state for those buttons is going to be the new dark red. So I'm just starting to brand this. And now if I want to go in and actually kind of highlight specific modules and do overrides for those, I can go into the modules tab here. And so let's say this banner up here at the top, I want to make that a nice dark blue, which is another brand accent for this brand. So I'll pick the promo banner here, and I'll pick the background, and I'll set that to something kind of a nice rich blue color. Apply that and hit save, and go ahead and do the same thing. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually setting in this tab over here, I'm setting stuff that's global. It might be affecting stuff across many different modules in the system that could really brand your site very quickly just through those global ones. These module ones are for a module type. So this promo banner, I've now said that the promo banner is going to have a background of dark blue. And with this done, I've basically started to rebrand this website. I want to point out that these modules and the style variables that are enabled here are completely up to the theme developer. So the theme developer has total control over which variables are available to the author in Site Builder. You can add more to these if you want to give more controls to those authors, or if you just want your developers to have complete control, you could actually get rid of them all and make all of your style decisions simply with the SDK through the theme. And that happens for individual modules as well as global modules. And Sam's going to walk us through that in the second half of this Tech Talk today. So we've kind of seen what that looks like. Once I'm happy with it, I can just hit finish editing just like any other document, and you'll see this button set as active. I'm going to actually go back here so you can see this here. Right now, what's active against my live site is still the default Fabrikam thing. So we were just previewing those changes in my demo AdventureWorks preset. But once I've sort of been happy with that, I can publish it, and I can publish it directly here. I can also publish it through a publish group for this preset. And if you want to learn about publish groups, I cover those in more detail in the content management tech talk that I did last week. So go there if you'd like to understand a little bit more about how publish groups. For right now, I'm just going to set this live by clicking on that and saying set as active. And as soon as I do that, now that preset is now active against my live site. So if I actually even go up here and remove the preview piece from the URL, this is going to render against my domain. It's going to look identical, but now this is actually my live site that has all those changes that I've just made. So now what if I want to do a couple quick hot fixes or test something that maybe isn't available through these style presets or the variables that have been enabled? I actually have another tool at my disposal here in Site Builder that doesn't require theme development or deployment. And what I can do is basically go here and use my browser dev tools to actually check out the CSS. So if I go here and use those dev tools, I could start messing around with the CSS here. So let's maybe change the font family here to a different font. So I just changed that font there. And now what I can do is just, once I've made all the changes that I want, and this could be across the whole page or the whole site even, I want to copy those changes, and I'll just basically bring them into a text editor and paste them in there. And I'm going to create my own CSS file. So this was the only thing I changed there, so I'll remove that. And I'm just going to save this as a CSS override. So I will find that there, and we'll name this demo AdventureWorks override. And I'll save that to my computer. And now I'm going to go back into Site Builder. And I'm going to go down here to the bottom where it says Site Settings. And there's another design tab here. This, in future updates, this design piece will be moving up under Publish Groups. The thing to understand is right now the CSS overrides are really treated almost like just a straight site setting. We are going to move those so that you can publish those as part of a Publish Group. So this functionality in a future update will be moving into this design tab as well. But what I'm going to do here is hit Upload CSS File. This is where I can add my overrides. And I'll pick that one that I just created. And it's uploading it, and there it is. And now I can actually preview my site and check those changes if I need to. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, let me, I'll blow this up. And we can pick any page in our site, just like the other style preset workflow. And I'll choose my ENUS variant. And it's going to show me a preview of that style override with that new font done through the CSS override. So that's how you do that. Once I'm happy with those changes, I can just hit activate. And again, this is the same way that that you can do that. And so now we've basically pushed this CSS override against our live site. We were able to preview it beforehand. Now this is actually the live site CSS. And thing to understand here as far as the fallback for CSS and variables for this stuff, the way it works is this CSS override file here is the top of the stack. This one will override any styles from either the theme or from your presets. The second piece down from that in the cascading styles is going to be your style presets or the variables that we just showed there. And then underneath that will be the styles that come directly from your theme that Sam's going to be walking you through here in a minute. And before I hand it over to Sam, I want to show you one other tool that you can use here. This is showing you how to sort of target specific CSS classes through the CSS overrides, or in the previous example, showing you how to target stuff based on global style variables or module type specific variables. But there's even a next level to that. If I want to, say, in the home page, target a specific instance of one module, where I can do that is basically I can pick any of these modules in the editor, and I can actually give it a custom CSS class name here. So if I edit this and want this particular content block to have a specific CSS selector that I can use in my overrides or my themes, I can go here and down in the property panel, I can actually give it a custom name. So this is, a way that you can actually target a specific instance within a page if you need to do that. So with that shown, I'm going to flip back to the PowerPoint here, and I'm going to pass it on to Sam to walk you through how we can do some of this stuff in the SDK using a custom theme and some other tools through the SDK. Sam, are you ready?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Okay.
Thank you.
So that was a great overview, Nick. So a quick review: when you want to theme your site, as Nick was showing with the AdventureWorks site that we're working on, first thing you want to do is see what you can do through Site Builder. So option 1 is to try to use the presets and adjust the variables. And then option 2, when those don't give you everything you need, you would then have some CSS overrides, and generally you'll use those for small fixes, or perhaps you're working on a quick demo. That's a great place to do it, and you don't want the overhead of creating a full theme. And then the next level is creating your own theme, and this is where you need to use our SDK, and generally you'll need at least a CSS or JavaScript developer to help out with this. And I'm going to show you now how to do that. So I'll start off by at least defining what a theme is. Nick covered most of it, but I'll reiterate that. So one of the main jobs of a theme is to define all of the module CSS. So Nick showed a bunch of the modules that we include as part of our module library, and the theme contains all the CSS needed for those modules. It also exposes the style presets and variables for the site builder. So Nick has shown the Fabrikam one, and I'll show that when I get to it, but if you recall, the Fabrikam one had 2 style presets. One was just called Fabrikam and one was called default Fabrikam. And again, as Nick mentioned, you might have a theme for a light theme, a dark theme, a classic versus a vintage look, things like that. So you can have different sets within a single theme pack. And then finally, something I'm going to cover is a theme also supports module view extensions. So although CSS can change the look and feel of your modules, there's some things it can't do. And I'll be giving you a demonstration of what you can do with module view extensions, but in essence, it allows you to change the HTML within a module. If that still isn't enough, we have our SDK where you can build your own custom modules, and you can even clone a module. We try to do everything we can to first not try to clone a module, because we will be providing regular updates to those modules that we ship. And we might have updates that include maybe accessibility fixes or other fixes. And if you've cloned one, it now becomes your code, so you won't inherently get those when you get an update. But the code is generally easy to do a diff if you did need to get those updates, if you did have to take that route. So we've mentioned the module library. That's something we ship on our platform. There are over 80 modules that we deliver. Some of them are not even used for UI. Some of them do things like add JavaScript to a page. There's a few other modules. But a theme that we also ship, we ship 2 themes, Fabrikam and Starter. They're actually treated internally like a module. They're just special modules. So I'll be showing that as well. And we include 2 called Fabrikam and Starter. Now, to create a custom theme, you'll be installing the SDK, and I'm going to walk through that. And then to create the theme, you'll use one of our CLI commands. CLI stands for Command Line Interface, and we ship a bunch of commands that help you do things like adding a new theme, adding a new module, etc. So you see that on this slide here, the yarn msdyn 365. And then the CLI command is actually the add theme that's after it. And the last AdventureWorks is just the name of the theme. I'll also be showing how to clone the theme. So this is cloning the Fabrikam theme into AdventureWorks, and I'll be showing that. And then finally, when you're done with these commands, you can build the SDK. You can also, at the end, I'll talk about building a zip file that is actually used to deploy through LCS. And I'll show a few screenshots on what that looks like. So I'm going to go ahead then and just jump right in. So the first place I'm going to start is showing you where to get documentation for this. At the end, I'll have a slide with it, but in this case, it's aka.ms/commerce online channel extensibility. Where that takes you is to our doc site under commerce, e-commerce section, and within that you'll see an extensibility section here, and then there's a whole section for online channel extensibility. That's everything to do with e-commerce. There's a get started node in here, and under that is a set up a dev environment. I just want to show you this real quick because I already have this set up on my local machine here, but there are 3 tools you'll need to install. The first one is a code editor, Visual Studio Code, and these tools, they'll take under 5 minutes to install. So Visual Studio Code is a great JavaScript editor to install. And then what you'll need is Node.js. Node.js is a JavaScript runtime. What that allows you to do is as you're developing these modules and themes, it will allow you to see the end result. It'll also allow you to browse your website, but being rendered on your local site. And I'll be showing you how that can be done. So you'll need Node. And then last, as part of Node, to download our packages, like our SDK and our module library, we use something internal to Node, which is called NPM, which stands for Node Package Manager. That's how all our packages get pulled in. We use one extra tool that runs on top of that called Yarn, and you'll see me use Yarn a few times, and it's just a helper tool. So once you have those 3 tools installed, then you'll see we have a GitHub repository. I'll quickly open that, and this is where you can get sort of the starter for your SDK. Okay, and to download it, you can do it in 2 ways. You can just download the zip file here, or instead I'm going to use the Git Clone. I'm going to close this, and I have that command written out right here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to open up a command prompt right here, and I'm going to create a new directory. So I'll call this TechTalk. Here we go, and I'm going to paste in that command Git Clone and then the URL for the GitHub repository. Okay, that just took a couple of seconds. Now I've downloaded that set of files, or as I mentioned, you could have unzipped this. It created one directory. I'm going to go into that directory, and there's a few files in here, but I still haven't pulled everything down. If you remember, I mentioned something called NPM and Node Package Manager. Well, there's this file in here, package.json, which tells us all the packages that our SDK relies on. And so I'm just going to run a command called yarn, and that's going to go ahead and start pulling down all those files. This will take about 40 seconds. I think that's what it took the last time I ran this. And while that's running, I'm going to now launch Visual Studio Code. And in Visual Studio Code, I'm going to open that new folder. And that was TechTalk, and then that one folder. That's the parent folder I'm going to open, and then I'll see all the files here. Now, the one filing, before I get to showing you how to create a theme, I do want to modify this Env file. This has a few things. When you see me in a moment running our node server, it's going to have port 4000, which is right here. And I want to set this variable here, msdyn365 host. There's just a few variables in here. There's also, I can point it to a different retail server if I want to debug against a different retail server, and then an image. I'm going to go ahead and paste on top of this here, and I've just kind of streamlined this just to the ones I need. So I'm leaving these 2, and then I'm adding the msdyn host. Now notice, this is the site that Nick was showing you. In fact, I will go back to my browser, and I have that open right here. I'm going to refresh because Nick had made some changes. I think he changed the color to blue up here and the button to red. So here's the site. Now notice this URL. All I'm doing is taking this, not the HTTPS part, and I just have that set right here. And this is going to come into play in a few minutes when I get there, but I'll come back to this when I need it. So I just want to save this file. Okay, now I'll close this. Now what I need to do is I want to create a theme. So I'm going to do one thing first. I'm going to open a terminal window here, and I'm going to run that command here. I could have done it in the command prompt, but this opens up a command prompt right within Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to go ahead and type yarn msdyn365. And you know what? Let me show you where I'm getting these commands from. In our documentation, I have another spot you can go to under Platform Overview right here. We have a CLI command reference. In here, you can see all of our commands. So I'm using add theme. So I want to create our own theme. So this is what I'm using right here. In fact, I'll copy that. erase this. I'll paste it here, and now I need to give it a name. And I'll call this Spring. I'm going to create a theme called Spring. Okay, that just takes a few seconds. Now, whenever you're creating themes or modules, and there's one other thing I didn't mention, I won't really cover, but another thing that you can create with our SDK are something called data actions. So I think you know what modules are. They're the building blocks of a page on our e-commerce site. Data actions are used to go get data for those modules. So it can talk to the retail server or our ratings and review service or a third-party service to pull in data that the module will render. So the three things that you can create with our SDK are modules, data actions, and themes. Underneath the source directory, this is where you add all of those. So all your modules will go here. If I added a data action, a new directory would get created called actions. And then under modules and themes, you'll notice first you'll notice under themes is Spring. That's what I just created. And you'll also notice one module here called Hello World. That's just a sample module we ship with our SDK. But I do want to give you a quick overview of what the structure of a module looks like, because the themes are actual modules, and that'll help give you a little understanding. I'll start off with this module definition file. In here, this file contains all of the metadata that and I'll split screen here for just a second. I want to bring up Site Builder. This is all the metadata. So as you're building your site, let me grab a template real quick. And when you do something like, let me go to a little spot here and say add module, you see this list of modules here? Well, this is where it's getting the friendly name for the modules and the description. So that's what's being added here. Let me give a little more room here. So again, the module definition file has all the metadata needed for the site builder tool. Also, you'll have this section called config. Now notice on any of our modules, we have a whole bunch of configuration fields. Now these come from being defined within the module right here. So notice this sample Hello World one has one config called title. It's of type string. So strings just show up like this, basically, where the user can enter in some string, like right here. See, it says class name. That's just a string. But you can have Booleans that turn on that look like this little check mark. You can have things like images. So it'll bring up the image picker and things like that. So those all get defined here. Now, now that you kind of know what the definition file is, I'm going to quickly just pop over to the theme definition file just to show you how similar it is. Now a theme doesn't have configs, but it does have the friendly name and the description. So now you can see. Now the one difference is the type in a theme is called theme module, whereas if I go back to the Hello World module, this one is called content module. So those are a few differences. Now the one more piece I want to show you inside of the module is this TSX file. So we use React. Our modules are basically React components. And you can see when I'm looking at the source code here that there's a class in here. And here's the name, this Hello World, that's the name of my module. And it extends the React class here. So that's how you know this is a React component. Very common modern tool set that we're using. And inside of here, the job of the TSX file is to generate some HTML. That will be rendered on a page. So you can see a little bit of HTML here, and there's really just two divs in here and some text, config value, and it's just showing the value of that configuration that was defined in here, this title. So whatever someone enters in a title in here, this module will just render it. Now, when you're debugging this locally, you don't have access to Site Builder to set that value. So we do have a directory here and a file under this mocks directory where you can put in some mock data. So hello world. So this will come in handy in a moment when I show you this running. So I'm going to go ahead and run yarn start down here. That's going to start my node server so I can see what these modules look like. And then I'll show you what the theme looks like. While that's loading, the first time this runs, since we're using TypeScript, all the TypeScript code is getting compiled to JavaScript. All the Sas files are getting compiled to CSS. So while that's running, the first time you run it, it'll take about a minute. I'm going to give a little bit more of an overview of the new Spring theme that I added. Okay, so we're done with looking at the module. Now, you'll see under the theme there are 3 directories. Probably the most important one is the styles directory. So there's a file in here, and it's following a pattern. The name of the theme.theme.sas, SCSS, pronounced SAS. And in here, you'll see all of the variables. Now, I created this theme. It's a very basic theme. It really doesn't have much in it. It's just a template. And you'll see a few things like a variable for a primary color, a background color, and a few other things, some font color. And you'll see a body background color being set to that color up there. You'll also see that we're using Bootstrap. We import Bootstrap. Bootstrap is an open source JavaScript UX framework that you can use. Now, all of our built-in module library modules leverage Bootstrap. You can use whatever library you like, but I will note that since all of our modules are built with Bootstrap, if you did want to switch to something else, then you would have to go and change all the CSS for those modules yourself. But there's no problem with you using Bootstrap and using something else for your own custom modules if that's what you wanted to do. Now, I noticed down here, this is ready at port 4000. So that's usually my sign that my server's now up and ready. But before I show you that running, I do want to just go over a couple more files over here. Now, if you recall, Nick spent a bit of time showing the presets. Now, to define a preset, there's another file in here, and it's the name of the thing, the theme.definition.sas.json here. And this is where you define each of these presets. So I'll just load this one up here. And notice here there's a global section. First, there's the preset name, friendly name right here. And there's a global section. And this is where all of these variables are defined right here. Now, this doesn't map. This is my Spring theme. And this one on the right is actually the Fabrikam theme. In a few minutes, I'll show you the exact mapping of the Fabrikam theme version. But you can see a bunch of these are included here in our default. And then under modules, we just have one sample here, header, we show category color and expanded category color. So the module ones are the ones that will show up over here. And you can see that it doesn't have all of the variables for all of the starter kit modules here. That's because none of that is defined in this new theme that I created. It's an empty theme. If you want to create additional, like a light theme or a dark theme or classic versus vintage, whatever those themes are, there's another pattern you follow, and you just create additional files. I'll show you that when I start, after I clone the Fabrikam theme, which has two. I'll show you what that looks like. And I think that's it. But you can basically change these to your heart's content, and they'll show up within the site builder once you've deployed this theme. All right. So there's two more directories I haven't covered here. I'm going to cover those a little bit more detail after I clone the Fabrikam. But underneath views is this directory here is how you create module view overrides. It allows you to change the view of one of the built-in modules or a custom module. And I'll give more a full end-to-end example of that if that's a little confusing. And then when you override a view, you might have a situation where you want to add additional configurations. And that's what this directory is used for here. Again, I'll show you an example of that. Okay, now that my node server is running, what I can do in my development environment is there's a special URL I can use, localhost:4000. If you recall, I mentioned in the Env file, it showed the port 4000, so that's where that's defined. And there's a special URL I can use, _SDK/all modules. And because I'm using HTTPS, it's saying I don't have a valid certificate, and that's okay. I'm using a dev environment here, so I'm just going to say to trust it. That's okay. And what this now shows me is all of the modules that are part of my development environment. And you can see a whole bunch here. You can even see that Hello World one that was a custom one. So let me click on that. And if you recall, I'll quickly go over to that Hello World file. Remember this TSX file that was outputting this div, and that's exactly what it's outputting here. So if I was to just add a couple characters over here and hit save, notice underneath here it starts building. So this is kind of neat. It detects any changes I've made and then automatically compiles it, and then I see it outputted here. Same with any mock data. So if I change the mock data here, I'll just slightly change that. When that's done saving, building, I should see I have to refresh that one, and you can see the B's added here. Okay, now this Hello World module is not really a real world example. You know, it's not doing much, but it's a good starting point. Now I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to show you one of the other modules. If you recall, Nick was showing you the promo banner and he changed the background to blue. Well, let's go see what that one looks like here. Well, okay, I see some text here, but it doesn't at all look like this. Well, the reason is no CSS is being defined yet. And the reason is I haven't told it what theme to use on my local dev environment. So I basically said, hey, just load up this module, but it doesn't know where the CSS files are. So to support that, all I have to do is add a new query string parameter, and I'll use the built-in theme Fabrikam. So I'm going to say and theme equals Fabrikam. Now notice how it looks a bit more like this one here. It's using the mock data that's built in for that module, and you can see it animating and things like that. So that's looking more like this. Now let me go back again. I want to show you what happens if I add the spring theme and theme equals spring. Well, I don't know if you noticed that was a little subtle, but the font's changed. Now, what's happening here is my spring theme has no class definitions for, whoops, let me open up the styles for that module. So that's why it's not showing up. So I'd have to go add them to here. But the reason the font is changing, the size is slightly, is because I'm bringing in Bootstrap, and it defines a different set of resources that are being used here. So that's what's happening there. So as I mentioned, creating your own theme is one way you can do this, but you miss out on all the CSS for our 80+ modules that we ship. So a better way to start off a brand new theme, if you're doing it, I like to recommend, is to clone or copy the Fabrikam theme. So let me show you how to do that. I'm going to, in my command prompt down here, I'm just going to escape out of my node server to stop it. And I'm going to type in a new command, yarn, msdyn 365. So all our CLI commands start with that. And then I'm going to type in clone. That's one of our commands. And we give it the name of the module. And remember I said Fabrikam, the themes are just modules, and it's called Fabrikam. And then I'll type in the new name. So I'm going to call this AdventureWorks. We'll give that a moment. And then when that's done, I'm going to again start up my yarn, my node server by typing in yarn start. Okay, so let's see what happened. I'm going to close a couple of files here, and let's take a look. And oh, you know what? I just realized I have one more step to do. I'm going to stop the yarn start here. When I cloned it, this is used for cloning modules. It puts it under the modules directory. There's one additional step I need, is just to drag this under the themes directory. We handle themes just a little bit differently. So now that I did that, now I can start. I can run my yarn start. Now while this is running, I'm going to show you what the AdventureWorks theme looks like. You'll see a few more files in here. So first I'll start off with that definition file. So again, notice it has the name I provided when I cloned it, but it doesn't have a new friendly name. So I'm going to add a friendly name. AdventureWorks. And by the way, the friendly name for a theme, if I go back to Site Builder, one of the places it shows up is there's a drop down for your themes right here. So you see a theme dropdown under site settings extensions. Not only that, but later I'll be showing you when you're creating your own site, after you upload a new theme and you're creating a new site, there's going to be a dropdown right here. So that's where it gets that name from right there as well. And I'll be covering this a little bit later in more detail. All right, so now I see my server is finished loading, but there's a few more things I just want to show you before I show you the theme in action. So I've changed this, and generally you want to change the description as well. There we go. I have a little more better description, and I'll save that file. Now underneath the styles directory, check this out. I have way more directories in here than that default theme, the spring one I created. Let me load up this Sas file, and notice this has actually been componentized. So I have 6 different directories here, and each of them is pulling this file here is just referencing those, an index file in each of those. Let's go see what's in those. I'm going to open up the first one, settings. Here's the index file, and notice it's just pulling in these additional files. The first one is colors. So this is where all of the Fabrikam default colors are. So you see different levels of gray. You'll see the primary color. If you recall, When Nick started, the background for a button was green. So that's where this green is being defined right here. You've got a whole bunch of variables in here, and some root variables are being defined here. So that's what's happening in this color Sas file. Next, we have the fonts Sas file. This is where we define all the fonts we're using and the font sizes and whatnot. So you can change those in here if you desire. And then there's an icons directory. We use Font Awesome for our fonts that we ship in our starter module library, and you can change any of these. You can use something different besides Font Awesome if you like, and you can change all of those here. But these are all our glyphs that we're using from Font Awesome defined here. And then the last file here is responsive breakpoints. You can change these as you like, and you can see our sites as you develop, and they're fully responsive as you get down to a mobile view size and whatnot. So if you need to change any of those breakpoints, you can do that here. The next directory is tools, and here you'll see some Bootstrap imports coming in here. I won't cover all of these in details, but there's some more additional layout information here, mix-ins, etc. under tools. Generic has a few generic things like buttons. You can see some Sas for the buttons. So if you need to change your button, for example, you can configure those in here. There's a few others here, form, image, some of the generic controls. And there's also a section for components. We have some components that we ship. Again, there's button alert component, and you can modify the Sas for these as well here. Now, the last and probably most important one I really want to cover is this modules directory. Now, check this out. We have a Sas file for pretty much every one of our module library modules. So let's see, Nick was showing the promo banner. So let me open that one here, and here you can see there's the main promo banner class right here. And so as you're developing your own modules, you might have custom modules. We have that Hello World one, for example. I might be adding a new class name right here. So my new module, and then as long as you have, and I'll just erase that, keep that clear, and then you can just go create a new Sas file in here. And that's where the module will map to its CSS. All right, so again, I'll be going back in here in a few minutes to show you how I can change some of this. RTL support here. When you have a RTL language, right to left language, we have different Sas that will get loaded for those. The next file I want to show you is the style preset. So let me go back over to design right here, and recall that as Nick was showing you, there was a Fabrikam and a default Fabrikam. So I'm going to quickly click on view, and I showed you this when I was in the spring theme, but I'm going to show you again. This is where all the Fabrikam ones are defined. So notice this default color is the one that's being shown right here in background. So if there's any variables, first of all, one, if you don't want them to show up here, you can just delete that one section. Or if you want to add them, all you need to do is go find a setting that hasn't been added. So maybe in colors here, maybe this font secondary color wasn't added. So it's as easy as just modifying, copying one of these sections. So I'll just show you that. Copy a section here. Notice it's kind of, the tool is underlying this because I'm defining the same one twice. But you can go grab a variable that you need to expose and then just paste it right over this right here. And then you can give it your own friendly name, your description, the type, if it's a color. The color is used to bring up the color picker, and then you can define a default or not. So I'll just back that change out. Now, once you want to have a second style preset, and again, I'll just hit the design button here. Notice this second one that's available, default.fabrikam. That one here is just following a pattern where you name the file name, default dot name of the theme. And so if I wanted a light and a dark, I could have light.adventureworks. And then the difference, and you want to make sure you have a unique name here. So notice this one here is just called Fabrikam, and this one here is default.fabrikam. You can have a friendly name in there as well. And then in here, you'll notice that this only defines two modules. What's happening is that when you select this default Fabrikam, it'll pick the default values that you've already set in your default one, but now you can override additional items. So in this case, if you see the header is selected. So if I go over to the header module here, you'll see the triple F right here is defining this color right here, the header background. And there's another one, navigation menu. But all the other modules in here will just be the same defaults that were defined here. So you don't have to redefine everything, just the differences that you want in one of these themes. Okay, let me show you a little bit of that in action. Now, if you recall a while ago, 20 minutes ago or so, I edited this Env file and I set the host to my website. What this allows me to do is see my live website rendered in my local development environment. So in my URL, if I just say localhost :4000, actually notice too, it's doing an authentication. I have to have auth access to that production site. And notice now the same home site that Nick was showing you is now rendering, maybe I'll reduce that a little bit, is now rendering right within my development environment. So I can now do a few things, like I'm going to have this use my new AdventureWorks theme. Theme equals AdventureWorks right here. Now it looks the same. So maybe, you might think maybe it didn't work, but it actually did. And I'll show you what I can now do. Because I'm still running my node server, I can now go and change things. So remember that promo banner. Let me go open up that Sas file here. Let me find it, promo banner, and I can start making changes. So for example, let's say I want to make other changes like the width. I want it to be 50%. That's not really something I normally want to do, but let's see what happens when I do that. So compile, and there you go. My promo banner is now taking 50% of the width. Again, that's not a normal thing I'd want to do, but it gives you an idea of all the changes you can do. You could pretty much change any variable in here that you want. So that's really it. You can now change your theme. You can change any of these Sas files. You can change the let's see, the sets of the active presets. That's the word I was looking for. Any of the active presets that you want, and you can add your additional. So now let me show you the next level of changes that you can do within a theme. And that has to do with what I talked about briefly, the module view extensions. So underneath views here, notice there are a few modules listed under here. So for example, this buy box. Now this is what we call a module view extension. To add a module view extension, there's another command prompt, and let me find it in here. It's called add view extension. And all you do is you provide the theme name and the module name. So for example, and I'll show you how I can do this. I'm going to escape out of my node server, and I'm going to copy this command. And I'm going to notice there's not one for promo banner. So I'm going to add promo banner, and actually I missed putting the theme name first, so I'm going to put AdventureWorks and then promo banner. Now notice in a second here, it's going to add a new file called promo banner. All right, and I'm going to run yarn start here, and there we go. I now have a view extension. Now I want to show you a little sneak helper thing. I'm going to hit Control-O to open a file, and in my SDK, there's a directory at the top level called Node Modules and MSDYN Commerce Modules. Inside of here, you'll see the source code for all of the modules we provide. And for example, the promo banner is here, and I can look under source code. So whenever you clone a module, this is where the source code comes from. So you can go and have a look at any of the source code of the modules if you need it as a reference. But underneath here, I just wanted to show you that notice these modules have a TSX file and a view file. So this usually has the business logic, and this has the view. When I did the add view extension, what happened was it copied this view extension, this view file right here into my theme. So that's what's happening here. Now, if I look at this file, this promo banner, you can see there's a bit of, it's returning some HTML in here. Now it's componentized, so it might not look exactly like HTML, but you can do some minor changes in here, and I'll show you that in action as soon as my node server is done. In fact, it is done here. So let me go back now to my to my website, and I'll show you how using these view extensions, how you can start making changes. I'm going to go and navigate to a product. I'm going to go to backpacks, and then I'm going to select this product, and there is a buy box module. And notice right here I have a buybox.view.tsx file right here. Okay, I'm going to just make the screen a little bit smaller here and do this. Now I need to tell it again to use my AdventureWorks theme. So and theme equals AdventureWorks. Okay, and notice I'm opening up this buy box view extension here, and there is a bunch of components that are being rendered here. There's the title, the price. Now let me just show you what you can do in here. So let's say I wanted this price to be rendered underneath the description. I can just take this price and I can just move it around. So I'm just going to move that, hit save, and again it's rebuilding. And then notice my price got moved under here. So what this allows you to do, if you change your theme, and I'll just change that theme back to Fabrikam, and the price goes back. So as you change themes, your modules can render the HTML quite differently, and you can have a site looking almost completely differently based on two different themes without changing any other module code. So there's a lot of power there. I'm going to give you one more example. I'm going to go back to the home page here. Whoops, it's not where I want it to go. And I'm going to show you how to do one more change, which is the header. We've had a lot of folks ask us, hey, how can I change the logo from showing up on the left side of my header to the right side? Well, unfortunately, in our header module, we didn't build in that support, but it's very easy to make those modifications yourself. So the way to do that, and it just so happens that in my Fabrikam theme, there's already a view extension here. So the Fabrikam theme overrode the original view. And in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just have a look at this file. And notice there's a, inside of the header, there are various components. So there's this logo component, the nav icon. The nav icon is this little hamburger button here. So I'm going to swap these two to make them show up on the right. And I'll show you how to do that. Well, pretty simple, similar to the way I changed the buy box price. So I'm going to have the logo. Actually, I want the nav icon to be at the far right, and then I have my logo. And then I'm going to put the search just to the left of the logo so it shows up in the middle. Okay, so it's as easy as that. Now, if you run into a situation where you need to do deeper changes or business logic changes, a lot of our business logic in generating this happens in the TSX file. So I showed you when I opened up that module. So if you need to do deeper changes, that's generally where you'll need to clone the module and do your own version of the header module in this case. But again, we try to do as much as we can without cloning, just so that as we update our modules in the future, you'll pick those up. So let me refresh this. Oh, actually, so let me now set this page to use the AdventureWorks theme. And notice the AdventureWorks logo showed up on the right now. And in fact, if I make this a little smaller, there's that hamburger button, and I have the search box showing up here. Now, notice there's some extra white space in here. Well, if we take a quick look, I'm just going to make this bigger for a second. Actually, I'll full screen it. If you use the F12 within a browser and examine the CSS for that, I'm going to take a look here. I notice that, let's see, I have a header class right here, header logo. And I notice, if you kind of look here, I just happen to know this, there's a margin right of 20 pixels. I can get rid of that here, but let's see how we can fix that in our theme. So if I go back to my theme now, and remember, all the CSS is defined in the styles directory. So I made some changes to my module override, but now I can go into the modules directory under styles and find the header Sas. And I just happen to know this, but as you're going around, notice the margin right. It's adding this variable here, and that's defined at the top, and that's where that 20 pixels is coming from. So instead of having it to the right, if I wanted, I can make this margin left and save this file, and I'll let that rebuild. And now I'll just close this. If I refresh, there we go. We got rid of that space, and we have a little more space to the left here. So using these both the CSS and the module override, you can really change the look and feel of any of the built-in modules. Now, to take it one step further, what you can also do is, let's say I wanted to also add a new variable that shows up. So if I go to my page here, let's see, I'll go to the header is defined in a fragment. So I'm going to go to the fragment right here. Here's the header, and I'll just open that up. We have other videos if you want to learn more about how to build pages and fragments, but a fragment is just a set of modules that is shared amongst pages. So here, I better full screen this. Here you can see the header module right here, and it has these different slots in it, and then it has a bunch of configurations over on the right over here. Let's say you wanted to make this control so that you can switch from the logo being left and right. You can go add another configuration. Now, again, I mentioned you can clone the module and do that right in the module definition file, but we also have a way within a theme to add additional configurations. So that's what this directory is used for, the definition extension. And I'll just take a look at one of these. Here's a buy box definition, and notice, actually this one's not using it. Let me find one that is using it. Here we go, this promo banner. For Fabrikam theme, they have added a new alignment configuration that shows up, and here are the possible values, left, center, and right. So if I wanted, I could add a header file in here. This one you have to create manually, but it's really simple. You just can copy one of these files here, create a new header.definition.ext.json. And you can add any new types in here. Now in your TSX file, you will be able to access these variables. So notice this alignment here was added. There's actually this auto-generated file, and that alignment gets added to one of the interfaces. And then within the component, you can now leverage that. So I can go into header, I can leverage that property, and I can now change the HTML. I could sort of put an if statement in here. If it's set to left, do something. If it's set to right, render it the other way. So that's basically what you can do, and that's the power of a theme. Now, once you're done creating your theme, creating any modules and actions, anything else that you need, you can then build this. So you use a command yarn msdyn 365 pack. That's going to go and build everything for you into this zip file. And I'm going to switch real quickly back to our documentation. We have documentation on this: deployment and maintenance, package configuration, and deploy them to an online environment. That's basically the next step. And I just showed you this command here, yarn msdyn 365 pack. Once you're done that, then you can log into LCS and select the environment. And then under the assets library, you can select e-commerce package, and then you can upload that file. That'll take about 10 minutes to upload the file. It does a bunch of validation to make sure everything is good with that file. And once that's uploaded, then you can go and deploy that package. So you then pick your environment, you select manage, and this is where you manage your e-commerce or your scale units. And it's as simple as just saying apply extension. You'll get a drop down with all the available themes. And then once it's deployed, it's now available. So once you deploy it, then you're in a state where if you were, for example, in the managed sites and you select new site here, you're now going to have AdventureWorks or whatever theme you've created will now show up as a theme pack. Now, one thing I do want to call out is that Nick was showing you AdventureWorks here, and notice it's using Fabrikam theme pack. We don't have the ability right now in Site Builder to change to a different theme pack. It's only defined when you create the site. So if you end up uploading the theme after you've created your site, you have to open a support ticket, and we can easily make that change, but we are building that into the tool, so that's coming soon. The one other thing to note is when you do have us change that for you, you want to make sure in site settings that there's a drop down here for the theme. You just want to make sure that also matches the same theme. We're going to be consolidating that, so it's just one spot that you pick it from. But in the meantime, that's what you'll have to do. So that pretty much wraps it up. So as a very quick review, as you are developing a theme, the first option you have is using any of the style presets. So that's using Site Builder. Then if you can't if you need to do further CSS changes, you have the option of using CSS overrides. And Nick also showed how you can do CSS overrides and create your own classes within a particular module. So if you only want one module to show up with certain CSS, you can do that. And then the next level is creating your whole new theme and making really any change you want across your whole site, changing your style presets or changing any of the library modules as well. So what I have here, I've got a link to the upcoming talks we have and some of the past talks. So I have a past talk that goes into more detail about module development, data action, a little bit on themes as well. So you can find that in the Tech Talk site under the commerce category. You'll see a whole bunch of our talks we've done. And then I have a few pointers to some of the articles that I went through. And also, if you want to engage with us, there's the Commerce Yammer group or the Commerce forums. So a big thank you for hanging out with us today. And I'm going to pass it back to Evan now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. We would like to get your feedback on today's session. I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We value your feedback and welcome your input on how we did today and what you would like to see in future sessions. That survey scores on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible, and we thank you for your participation in that. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and a thank you to our audience for logging in and joining us today. Please stay safe and have a great rest of your day or evening wherever you are. Goodbye.